Hey folks, how are you doing today? And I tell you what, I'm a happy camper here with my pal Reece Dinsdale here. How you doing, buddy?
I'm all right, Bobby. It's lovely to see you.
Listen, I've got to say one thing before we start, right? Up the Terriers.
You beat me to it because I was going to say up the cabbage. I was going to say up the cabbage. Oh, the hibbies, or whatever you want to call them.
Yep, the heavies, the good old
Thank you,
heavies.
sir.
Absolutely.
I think you're doing better than we are at the moment.
Yeah, well, I thought Huddersfield were doing quite well. They're not near the
We
top
were
of the
until
table.
the last two or three games, and the kind of wheels have come off a little bit, and we've settled to 11th position now.
No.
So I don't know what's happening, mate. But I went on Saturday. I went to Barnsley away. It was just dreadful. The weather, the conditions were horrific. But I always loved watching my football. We got a 1-1 draw. Went ahead. They scored just before half time, and then it just kind of went to nothing. And it's been happening. We were terrible against Borough the week before, and having beaten West Brom the week before that. So there's no rhyme, no reason in all this football malarkey, is there? One week you're up, and another week you're down.
It's true what Jimmy Greaves used to say. It's a funny old game, isn't it?
It's very true. What a player! What a player!
He was some player.
I always think he's the forgotten, real great player of British football. I do, because he didn't get into that World Cup team. I mean, his scoring record was beyond anybody else's. Fantastic football.
And I mean, I remember watching something about Greavesy, and it was like, they said he was all right about being left out the team, but I didn't think he was all right about it.
Would you be?
Oh, no.
I mean, you can't argue with the fact that Jeff has scored 3 goals, so there's no argument there. Nobody's trying to knock that guy's achievement, but this guy was, he could finish better than I think anybody I've ever seen, perhaps barring George Best. Yeah. The guy was incredible. And not to have made that, must have stuck in his craw somewhat. But he handled it afterwards, didn't he, for many, many years very well. Except, of course, he had a huge drink problem. So whether he did or he didn't, I don't know. But I thought he was magnificent. How did we get onto Jimmy Greaves so quickly, Bobby? What's happened here?
I know. You know what? It's funny because, when I was younger, obviously, when I was like a teenager, it was like I used to play football myself. And the clubhouse that we were in, it had like a tea room, had the TV on and stuff, and guaranteed before an hour, maybe nearly 2 hours before we would play, the St. Greavesy show would be on.
Right, okay.
And it was just class, Reece, honestly. It was just kind of, it was funny.
It was funny because I think they started off quite badly, really. They probably weren't very used to it all, and they looked like two real amateurs. And I think out of that, they kind of cobbled something together that became really wonderful, and it wasn't about being, bang on and knowing how to present programs. It was just them two having a chat, wasn't it? Really. He once went on. He did like breakfast TV or it was ITV, I think, maybe.
With TVM. It was TVM.
Thank you. Your memory is better than mine. And he was there on the sofa with me. You only come on the show, you sit on the sofa, you do your chat, and you go away again. So I never got to meet him off screen, as it were. But I remember, I think it was him and Anne Diamond. That would be right, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, it would have been.
She was part
Nick Owen.
No, it was Greavesy was on there.
Oh, really?
And I remember Anne Diamond showing us some clip about some royal wearing this certain dress, and what did we all think? And then she turned to me and said, "What did you think about that dress there, Reece?" And I went, "Well, to be honest with you, I'm not really that bothered." And Greavesy turned to me and went, "Well, bang goes your night, Mr. Dinsdale." There you go. Anyway, but he seemed a nice fella. Anyway. Oh no, it was him and guy called Mike, somebody, a nice fella, really nice.
Mike Morris, the guy with the
and maybe she was on as well. Maybe Greavesy was guesting on the show, and those two were running it, Anne Diamond and Mike Morris, and she said that was it.
I think,
but he was lovely.
Yeah, I think Greavesy, when he was on TVM, I think he was like a critic, like he was a TV critic.
Right, then that's maybe why we were both on together. But I never got to chat with him, and that was a pity.
But I tell you what, though, mate, honestly, it's just so great to have you on. One thing I was going to ask you was, obviously, done the acting, the directing and stuff. What made you want to be an actor? Like from when you were young?
What made me? It was an accident, really. They all say that, don't they? But it was really. I was shoved into a school play against my better wishes at the age of 12. I didn't want to do it, but I did it. Kicking and screaming, and the usual cliched thing. The applause was fabulous. People enjoyed what I did. The first time in my life I'd been told I was good at something, and from that moment on, I wouldn't be thrown from the scent, really. I said, that's what I'm going to do then. That's what I'm good at. That's what I'm going to do. When I was brought up in working class Yorkshire, Normanton in the 70s, I would be a teenager. There were no actors. There were nothing like that. Of course, my dad had been first of all a miner and then worked in a factory, and my mum was a nurse, a health visitor. And so nobody went and did that. So it was a bit fanciful and far-fetched, but I wouldn't be thrown off it. And I remember joining this local amateur dramatic society called the Normanton Players. And it just consisted of really like the farmer's wife, the Baptist minister, a lawyer, and two teachers from my school, who I'm sure hated me being there, because you didn't see teachers out of hours then. And so I religiously did this thing and tried to get ahead, and I just wouldn't be thrown off it. And I went to audition for drama schools at the ripe old age of 17, and because you auditioned a kind of year before. In your A-level year to get there, to start in the September. And I was a young 18 when I started. I just turned 18 when I went there. So that's how it began. But once I got the sniff of it in my nostrils, the acting thing, I wouldn't let go.
Very good. Very good. You've done really well, mate. Honestly, you've done absolutely. You've done fantastic.
I've been around the block a few times. Anyway,
absolutely,
that's
sure. It's like you're just. Just about on every fantastic show that's been on the TV. You seriously have.
Well, it's a lot. It's been a long time, Bobby. There's been some low times too. I'm not one of these who's going to go, yes, I was in this and in that. Now, my career's been so. It's always like that, isn't it? You're up and down is your career, and you take the rough with the smooth. But I'm still here. That's the main thing.
That's the main thing. I'm glad you still are here. But it's you've done lots of things. You've done lots of theatre, you've done TV, you've done film. You know what I was actually talking about the other day that I think it was one of my mates. The film, I think it was Kenneth Branagh's. I think it was Much Ado About Nothing. You were in that.
No, I wasn't in that one. I was in Hamlet. Ken did Much Ado years previously, and then he did Hamlet with the biggest stars in the firmament and me, and he just it was amazing. It was an amazing experience.
Because was Keanu Reeves not in one of them?
Yeah, he was in Much Ado. That was the first. That was his first Shakespeare, the big one. Well, he did Henry V and Much Ado, didn't he? And then the big one was Hamlet. I only say that about the stars in that it was true. Basically, Tim Spall and I played Rosencrantz and Guildenstern together, and we were kind of the nobodies at that time in comparison to the rest, because the rest of them, I mean, you name it, they were in it. There was, Billy Crystal, Kate Winslet. There was Robin Williams, there was Judi Dench and Ken himself, and then there was Derek Jacobi, and there was Jack Lemmon, and there was Charlton Heston, and it went on and on and on. And every single day, a bigger star would walk in to the kind of studios where we shot it, and it was just extraordinary. But Ken, he's a terrific chap. And he's one of us, really, Bobby. He's just a normal guy who's done really well for himself. And in fact, it's the only time I've got a job after I wrote to somebody. I was doing a play at Hampstead Theatre in London, and there was a guy called Sean Prendergast who'd done work for Ken before, a good mate of Ken's. And I said, I'd love to work for Ken. How would I get hold of him? He said, just write to him. So, and I'd read this A Day in the Life thing in the Sunday Times of Ken, and he was just so normal. So I wrote to him, because he was filming Frankenstein with Robert De Niro at that time. I wrote to him at the studios, and he sent me back, I've still got it, the piece of paper. He sent me back with the Frankenstein header on the letter. But I just said, listen, Ken, my name's Reece. I'm an actor. I've been doing this, that, and the other. I've read your thing in the Sunday Times. I'm working with your mate Sean. I'd love to meet you at some point and just have a chat. He wrote back with this letter saying, no, exactly, you are, Reece, don't worry about that. He said, once I've got this monster up and running, as in Frankenstein, let's, and put to one side, let's go and have a chat somewhere. Before we could do that, I got this call to say, would I come in to meet him for his next project, which was the film of Hamlet. I read for it, we chatted, offered me the gig, and that was that. But he was like the rest of he was just like he was always quite well, he can handle himself, Ken, and he knows what he's doing, all that. But he said to us one day, we were rehearsing in Shepperton or wherever it was, Pinewood, I can't remember, Shepperton maybe, and he said, oh, Tim, Reece, come with me. Robin Williams has just flown in and I've never met him and I'm nervous. Come with me, please. We've got to go up to the makeup room after rehearsals. Will you come? So me and Tim tagged along and we're like, what the hell are we doing? We're going to meet Robin Williams. And Ken wanted support, it was like just the rest of us, like, oh my God, it's Robin Williams. And so we sat there with Robin Williams in the makeup chair with this big beard, and he was having the middle bit shaved off, so he had these big sideburns, and he was surreal, And each day there'd be somebody like that walking out. Like I remember one day, we're on the set, and across the main hall of Elsinore, it comes this old man walking towards us in between takes. And I thought, as he's getting close, I'm thinking, my God, that looks like a much older version of Jack Lemmon. And of course, it was an older version of Jack Lemmon. It was Jack Lemmon. It was just ridiculous every single day. And, I'm like a child and like going, oh my God, look at that. So and so. You never lose that, do you, Bobby?
Brilliant.
You never
absolutely.
lose that thing of meeting people.
So
and meeting them.
I mean, see me actually spoke to him with the cool people to chat with.
Say again, Bobby. I'm so sorry.
But actually, cool people to chat with.
Oh, mate, it was a joy. I mean, the people like Richard Bryers in it, it was just delightful. And Derek Jacobi and Kate Winslet was really before she'd become a big name. I mean, it was probably her biggest for one of the first big ones. Before Titanic and all the rest of it, of course. But they were just so lovely and normal. Ken was great, as I say. Tim was a joy. We used to have the same car to pick him up in Southeast London somewhere, then pick me up I was in South London, and then we go on to the studio somewhere. So we spent so much time together, Tim and I. Just before he was very ill, actually. I went off to New Zealand for a holiday straight after, and I got back to find he'd got cancer, which luckily he's beaten and everything's good. But I worked with him all that time, and then he was very ill. But such a great guy.
I tell you what,
I've been very blessed like that, Bobby.
He's a he's a fantastic actor, isn't he?
Yes, he certainly is. Wonderful actor.
And it's like, I mean, I loved him on A Wiedersehen, Pet.
All those years ago. You see, people don't forget those early ones, Whatever you do sometimes, people just always love the ones that they saw in your early days and a bit, I will say, but like me with Home to Roost, you can't really shake it off, It's one of those, but
do you know what's really, really funny one time was I watched the whole box set of A Wiedersehen, Pet, and I think it was about 2 days after I watched the very last episode. I was walking up Lothian Road in Edinburgh and I thought to myself, you know what, I could do a nice cup of coffee and a sandwich or something. So I went into one of the little sandwich shops, which is quite near Usher Hall. And I goes in. So I sits down, has my coffee and my sandwich, and I'm just looking at the gentleman that's sitting at the window. It was Moxie. It was Christopher.
Yes, I know exactly who you mean. What's his surname? Curly fair hair.
Yeah, it was.
That's the one.
Christopher.
Not fair.
Christopher Fairbrother. Christopher Fairbrother.
There we go. I know you. Yes. Well, I
it's
suppose
him.
we all do the same thing. We all find a coffee bar and have a cup of coffee and hide out of the way.
and I couldn't believe it. And I actually had to go for it. I says, look, I'm sorry, I don't want to disturb you there. I says, but I'm a fan. I says, I think you're fantastic. And he said, oh yeah, not a problem. And he was chatting away to me, and he was such a lovely, lovely guy. And we were talking for about like 10 minutes, and then I says to him, look, I says, thanks for your time. And I say, because he was performing at the Lyceum, which is kind of next to where Usher Hall is.
Right.
And, and it was just great talking to him. It was one of these guys who took time to chat with him, which was lovely. Reece, honestly.
I think 9 times out of 10, most people in the public eye are okay with you, aren't they? And they chat to you. And if you, I went up to Jack Nicholson. There's a bloody name to drop. At the National Theatre, he was watching. We were both watching a play, Plenty by David Hare, in a matinee one Saturday afternoon, and I was playing Billy Bibbit in Cuckoo's Nest at drama school, and there was my idol, my hero. He is my favourite actor, Phil Manton. And he was there, and I thought, I've got to go and say something, and I did. And I just went, I'm so sorry, but my name's Reece. And I was a drama student. My name's Reece, and I'm playing Billy Bibbit, and you're brilliant. And he just looked at me with that lovely little kind of smile he had, and he put his hand down, he shook my hand, and said, thank you very much more. It was great. Sometimes you just have to do it, don't you?
Absolutely. I mean, I was obviously, when I was young, I was brought up with listening to Queen. I mean, I know you're not too fussed on Queen, but I grew up with Queen. But one of the things
I said that once on Twitter, and I got hung. Seriously, people don't like you saying you don't fancy certain bands or this, that, and the other. Anyway,
it's like everyone's different, eh? But
yeah, exactly.
I met Brian May, and I thought to myself, is that him? And I tell you what it was. I was in a play called the Crucible, and I played Reverend Paris. This was years ago, and I was like, we'd just been rehearsing, kind of the little rehearsing space where we're at. It was quite near Edinburgh Castle, actually. It was down on the Royal Mile, and it was what do you call it? I can't remember the name of the venue, but anyway, so we were rehearsing there. It was kind of near a pub called Deacon Brodie's. So as I was walking down Deacon Brodie's, I saw it was like a police van, and then I'm thinking, oh, what's this? And then as I kind of walked around the police van, big tall chap with curly hair, and I'm saying, that can't be him. And what's he getting arrested for? So I'm thinking, I goes up, I say, excuse me, Brian May, and he turned around and it was him. And I got talking away to him, and he was such a lovely guy. I think it was just, I don't think he was getting a taxi. I think they were getting a lift somewhere.
Okay.
Okay.
Maybe it was a police escort. Taking Queen. Yeah, that's probably it.
And then he was talking away to me for about 15 minutes, I would say. And then obviously
they enjoy a bit of normality, sometimes with people. I think it's just like, if I chew the fat with this guy, why not?
Exactly.
It's as opposed to people just maybe screaming and fawning and things over them and what have you all.
Exactly. And he was so lovely, and he was just talking, we're talking like about Freddie Mercury and talking about the band and stuff, and it was great. And to me, it was a dream, just chatting away to it. And then I just went down the road, and afterwards, well, that's what I was saying. I was actually going to go to the pub to meet my dad after it. And I was telling my dad, and he was like, thinking that I was telling lies. I said, it was him, I'm telling you. And he gave me his autograph, and he's like, how do I know that you never wrote that? And I went, for God's sake. I'm thinking, Dad, come on.
The people we've met, huh?
Absolutely, mate, absolutely. But
so how's things with you? How's it? You make me laugh, you do, Bobby. I was thinking about you today before I came on here, because I just get so impressed by the amount of work that you seem to kind of self-generate. You're like you've got a finger in so many pies, haven't you? I think it's extraordinary.
I just like to I like to be creative. Reece, and it's like, and obviously, I like, as I've said, lately I've been doing a lot of writing, and obviously I got one of my films wrote and made, like the one, did I not send you Wild as the North? Did I not send you that film?
I haven't. I've seen the droving though. But
did you watch it?
Yeah, it was really, really good. But the Wild is the North, I've only ever seen the clips on your show reel.
Right. Okay. Well,
I know you wrote and directed. Wrote and starred in it. You didn't direct it, did you?
But I've actually got. It's only 11 minutes long. But what we did was we made the film thinking we could maybe pitch it towards making it into like a feature film.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a bit of a film, you know, but it's, you know, it's the first time I've kind of did something like that where I've researched it's based on real characters.
Mm.
And so, you know, I'll show you it later on. I'll send it to you.
Yeah,
But
thank you.
I've wrote another ghost story type short film as well. But I'm more or less that's done. I'd like to get that
You
film.
shot that. You've written it, but you haven't shot it yet. Then.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've never shot it yet. I've wrote it the way.
No. Okay.
But as I said, I'm writing my book just now, and I'm just so excited about that.
You're writing a book.
Yeah.
An autobiography.
No. It's an actual novel.
A novel.
Yeah.
My God, Bobby, what are you like?
To keep
but
myself
you just
occupied.
said it though. Well, exactly. You just said it because I've been saying it with my little Reese's Pieces show that I've been doing of like, you know, that kind of mad ego-driven thing of the young actor has left me now at my ripe old age. But what will never leave me is the need for creativity.
Yeah.
You know, I have to do something. I have to be out there doing something. You know, it's turned itself into directing of late, as you know, and I'm just absolutely loving that. But even if it wasn't there, if nobody ever offered me a job again, whether it be on stage or on screen or as a director, you know, I'd have to go. This is my dream, actually, by the way. I would have to go to live on the East Nuka 5 by Crailway and just take my dog and buy a place on there with my family, of course, my wife. But walk the dog and come home and write. I'd have to do that every day. So in my dotage, I'll be just up the road from you, and we can come and meet in the middle somewhere because I'll be there writing. I have to. It's just a need I have. Yeah. And even if I don't ever get paid for it ever again, I will still do something because that's what keeps me going.
Absolutely. And, you know, I don't know if this is an illness or something, but it's like, I mean, sometimes when I go to my bed and I wake up in the morning, and sometimes, obviously, I'm no spring chicken as when I was younger, but
I'll swap.
But it's like,
you didn't bite my hand off, did you?
I know. Oh no, I didn't mean that. But it's like the brain. It's like the brain kind of wakens you. You know, it's like sometimes you can't get to sleep, and sometimes it urges you to get up and do something. Like, you know, like writing wise or something like that.
That's the curse we have, or the joy of being creative people. You know, when it gets you, and you've got to do something about it.
Yeah, and it's like it's like your body wants to stay in the bed, but your brain's saying, "Get your ass up."
Your brain's doing something else, isn't it? Oh, long may it continue, my friend. Long may it continue.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. Yeah. But I tell you what, though, you've been lucky enough to work with some cracking people and some cracking shows. Honestly, I'm so envious.
I can't complain.
Right. Yeah. I tell you what, one thing I'm going to ask you here is, because I love the guy. I loved him. John Thaw. What was it like working with him, mate?
Well, it was an education. I mean, John was Jack Regan from the Sweeney when I was a kid, you know, and my dad and me had watched him together and you know, loved the Sweeney and all the rest of that. And then I went and did my thing at drama school, became an actor, wanted to be, you know, a proper actor, a classical actor or a serious actor. And I'd done a few things, including Threads and Winter Flight and done loads of theatre. And I remember my agent ringing me up and saying, there's this sitcom. They fancy you for the Sun role in it. And I'm like, no, not a sitcom. I don't do sitcoms. No, that's not me, you know, stupid young actor. And then he goes, yeah, but it's kind of a two-hander with John Thaw. And I'm like, whoa, now let's have a think about
it. Now you're talking.
Now we're talking. So they've been looking for a 17-year-old to play his son, but I will say it. None of them could really stand toe-to-toe with John and match him, and it had to be that. It had to be, it was a two-hander, and it wasn't a two-hander for nothing. It wouldn't have worked. John was wise enough to realize this as well. Yeah. It wouldn't have worked without an actor opposite him who could cut it. And so luckily for them, I was 25, looking 17. But I got 5 years of experience after 3 years at drama school as well, in my bag already. And so I looked at this, and I went did the screen test with John. John turned up, so we were doing it together, which is rare. And we just went bang, 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 back and forth, and it just worked, a treat. And so, as I say, John was wise enough to realize that it was a two-man show rather than just for him, and we got on famously. We did it for 30 episodes or something like that. Not that many when you think about it, but over about 4 or 5 years. And we only ever had one crossword, and he said he was sorry, it was his fault. He got out of bed the wrong side one day or something. But it was funny because he was a guy who I always find it difficult to know whether he was just quiet or shy or what. I mean, but you had to warm him up every single day. John would come in and he'd be like starting on day one again. The guy had to get going. He'd sit there in the corner with his newspaper and he's in the rehearsal room and he's in his crossword and a cup of tea, and he'd be kind of nearly monosyllabic for 2 or 3 minutes until you wound him up, the starter handle, got him going, and then he was just great fun, and we got cracking on the stuff, and it was great fun. We were lucky to have a chap who directed us most of the time, who we both adored, and we just laughed, and we knew it was working between us, so we worked very hard. I mean, John was a consummate actor, and we found it very difficult to learn lines, to be fair, because it was so breakneck speed, learning and performing one episode every week, rehearse in London half the week, got to Yorkshire, and then do it live in front of an audience on a Friday night. And in an hour and a half, you've got to knock this show off. And it was hard work for him. He never found it very easy in that respect. But he was brilliant. We were good together. He gave me some really good advice and things over the years. The best of which, I think, which you kind of alluded to, is he said, always keep coming out of a different corner, Reece. Always keep them guessing. And if I've got one thing I can say about my career, is that I've done that. I've done film and television and theatre and radio drama, and I've directed and I've this and that, and it's been comedy and it's been tragedy, and from ID to Home to Roost is quite a journey, and so I think he'd be proud of me if he was still here to see what I made of things. But we got on very, very well, and John was his own man. In some ways he didn't suffer fools, and I feel like I'm his son talking about him, really. It's really for his own family to talk about him, but I was close to him at that time. He didn't suffer fools, but he also was a decent human being without a shadow of a doubt. His heart was in the right place, and I like the guy enormously.
And the thing is, it's like, I noticed when you were on, I still remember that show. And it's like every now and then I'll go into YouTube. I like to look at old shows like from back in the day, and I loved the old comedies like Rise and Damp. Like
same writer, Bobby. Same writer.
Eric Chappell, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And and it's like that you and John had a real chemistry as like father and son. It was.
I think that's what did it in the end. Yeah, we just did have that chemistry, and we didn't have to try very hard at all. Well, I think that's probably how the best of shows work, where people it just comes natural to them, the chemistry. So yeah, I was very, very grateful for it, and thank God I did say yes. In some ways, though, mate, I think it did me as much harm as it did good as well. Because in the long run, I think a lot of people thought that was me just doing that, because it was very successful. We had 14 million viewers, I think at its peak on a Friday night. That was a lot of people when you think about that. And so that, as we said earlier, that goes into people's minds, and that you never escape from that. That's who you are. To many people, I am young Matthew from Home to Roost. It's funny because when do you mind me rambling on like this, Bobby? I'm sorry.
On you go.
Kind of,
on you go. Honestly,
I kind of tend to do this, and it's this.
That's what it's all about, Reece. It's all about you.
Okay.
Just ramble on, mate. Honestly,
Well, it's like what I was talking about was that's what happened to me with the film ID, which came along in '94, having finished with John in '89. But the film ID, if anybody knows about it, is a story of a youngish, ambitious copper who goes undercover to root out these football hooligans, and the kind of the drug of violence gets under his skin, and he can't get off it, and he becomes one of them. And it's a one man's journey into hell, really, is the film's thing. But they wouldn't see me for it. They wouldn't see me at all because I was Matthew Willows in Home to Roost. And they had all the usual suspects. And I'm not going to name them because that's not fair. Yeah. But some very famous actors, far more famous than me, of my generation, were wanting the role desperately. And but the trouble was the character had to shift from being this guy's kind of nice, okay, a bit cocky, but nice copper, not innocent, but just what you couldn't see, what you didn't need to see at the beginning of the film was where that character was going to go. And certain actors who wanted the role, if you put them in the part, you know exactly where it's going to go by the end. But with me, you couldn't tell that, but they still wouldn't see me because they didn't think I got it in me. Having seen Home to Roost for all those years, they didn't think I'd have it in me to do the heavy stuff, the really kind of frightening, scary stuff. And so I remember my agent pushing and pushing and pushing, and they couldn't cast it. And finally went, okay, let's see him. We'll see him. And Bobby, I tell you, I just went mad. I went absolutely mad in the rehearsal room, and I kicked over tables, and I shouted and ranted and raved and gave them, both barrels with what I got. And within a day, I got the role and things. It was extraordinary. But as I say, I nearly didn't get it, and that would have been a different career. And because of Home to Roost. So I adored Home to Roost for so many reasons. And it was such fun and such a joy. And yet I do think it held me back slightly. But no regrets, mate. I had fun, and I'm still here, as I say.
Well, but the thing is, though, I mean, obviously what you said about Home to Roost, and obviously people were kind of thinking that you were going to be that role forever. It's a bit like, it's like the curse that, say, Harry H. Corbett had with Steptoe type thing, where people thought he was just Steptoe, but he was a fantastic actor. He was the different loads of theatre roles.
Well, nothing like the character, did he?
No, exactly. No. And like, he was kind of caught up in that curse of, being like, being that character forever. But like yourself, and I'll tell you something. This is quite ironic that you said this, that you've mentioned this. I remember when you did ID, and I loved the film that much that we actually had a five-a-side football team, and we actually called them Shadwell. Seriously.
How about that?
We actually called them, and we were a cracking team. Honestly, we were winning leagues left, right, and centre.
Yes.
And we actually played in like the yellow and black, like the colours.
Oh, okay. Like you know why they have the colours like that, don't you? The only reason they had to have those colours was because we shot a certain scene of ID. The very first scene we shot was shot kind of a few weeks before the main body of filming. And that was because we had to get permission from, it was Bradford City at the time, to film at their ground. We were going to do some shooting later on in the main body of the filming, the main shoot there, but we had to go and shoot some footage weeks earlier because we were allowed to go in when there was a home game, when there was a real game being played. And what happened was the away team that day were Hull City. And so to match up the colours of whoever the fans behind the goal had, where, at one point I run behind the goal and I join my mates' fans and all that, it had to match with Hull City's colours. And that's the only reason that Shadwell Town played in black and amber, or whatever, what do you want to call it? There you go. There's a little bit of a snippet of useless knowledge.
But the thing is, as well, it's like, it had quite a lot of star people in it as well, didn't they? Like,
I suppose we all became, a lot of us became the, known on British television, like Perry Fenwick and Phil Glenister and all the rest of it. But Warren Clark was already a big name, wasn't he? Warren was that, and Sean Pertwee was getting there, and
Sean Pertwee,
and all the rest. But yes, Saskia Reeves and it was a great bunch of people.
And there's a wee bit of irony there because was it
Claire Skinner, of course.
Sorry. Oh, I love. Oh yeah, definitely. Oh, the Skinhead eye.
Wonderful.
But talking about ID, talking about Wild as the North earlier, like it's my film, and the bad guy that's in Wild as the North, the guy who plays the baddie, was actually one of the main guys in ID 2.
No,
yeah,
so I've never seen ID 2.
Yeah, Duncan Early.
Is he the guy who played the guy with you, like a Nordic leader or something? And you say you don't even look Nordic, or you don't even look.
All right, yeah.
The dark-haired guy with the knife he's twiddling in his hand. That guy.
No. You'll see him. I'll show you him. He's kind of like a baldy guy, and he actually played Alicia Vikander's trainer in the Lara Croft film. He was actually he played a trainer in the movie Lara Croft. But but Duncan was in ID 2, and he was like one of the mains in that film.
I never saw it. They did. They asked me to be in it, and I just thought, not that part, of course. I'm not trying to say that, but I just thought, sometimes when you've done some really good work and you're proud of it, and then 20 years later they do a sequel, and I just thought, why are they doing that? Well, they're doing that because it became a cult hit, and they wanted to, make the best of that 20 years later. And I'm thinking, no. Sometimes it's just, forgive the pun, but it's better to let sleeping dogs lie, I think, with certain things. And because I could have easily ruined that by being in a second film.
Yeah.
So no, sometimes it's best to say no.
Yeah. But, it's just, that was obviously back in the day. When I was at school, obviously I had football hooliganism was rife. You had gangs, which was kind of rife as well. But, ID kind of stuck a wee chord with me. It was like the first film I kind of watched where there was like football hooligans. But I thought, wow, this is really good. And I just thought the acting was fantastic in it. And I thought you were brilliant in it as well. But,
sorry, Bobby. I think the trouble with it was, then they made quite a lot of those kind of films afterwards. And what disappoints me a little bit about it, just a tiny wee bit, is that the film was a study in this one guy's kind of descent into hell, as I explained before, and just to show you how violence is a drug. It can get under your skin. It can ruin your life. It can like drugs or alcohol or whatever. But the lads who watched it, why it became a cult hit, was because the lads were getting off on kind of laddish, yobbish violence side of it in many, many ways. And I find that a little bit sad that many people hadn't dug deeper and seen what the film really was about. And I can't really speak for films later, but I think maybe a lot of them glorify. So I've been told, the kind of that football violence, that era. And that's a pity. But hey, we did it for the right intentions.
Yeah, it's like, but it's like, there's been a few more films like that with the football violence and stuff, I heard that Green Street's a great film, but
I'm sure it is. I've not, I've done my thing with it.
Yeah.
And they're not particularly a genre of film I'm that bothered about.
Yeah.
I did ours, and I think it did come from the right place, but it's not something I've been on bothered to see or anything. It's not my kind of film, so I'm not bothered with any of them. I'm sure they differ. I'm sure some are great and some are not so great, but I couldn't tell you which ones.
Yeah, and it's like, I've never actually got around to watching it, but that's because obviously ID back in the day, I just loved that film. I just thought it was just great, and obviously just the actors that were in it were just fantastic, and I just loved it. I would watch it now, and it's
people still do. I still get people shouting lines at me down the street. There's a certain line, "Effing love you, Gumbo," that gets shouted. And Shabwell Army is a regular one, but they still do it. It's the people who were born well after the film was made.
Yeah.
I still have it as a film that they watch on a Friday night with their mates. I've been stopped so many times. People say, "We've watched that so many times. We watch it every time after the pub." It's an extraordinary thing, isn't it? That happens.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. Yeah. But But I mean, I absolutely did love watching that, and that's why, obviously I named my five-a-side team after Shadwell Town. But going back to that you did theatre and stuff, and honestly, you've
still do when I can.
Yeah, of course. But you worked with Peter Ustinov. What was that like?
Well, there's a little tale there. To be fair, I mean, part of the reason I became an actor was because I didn't feel very confident with my speech. I still don't, funny enough. You might think that's not true, but it's true. I still stutter and wonder what's coming out of my mouth and have to check myself and all the rest. But when I was a kid, I always felt, see, I'm doing it now, Bobby, for you. I always felt out of my depth with people who were supposed to be like either posher or, positions of power. I was all right with my mates and with my family, but I wasn't particularly good at communicating in any other kind of more pressurized, different world. And I could hide behind the character. You see, as an actor, I discovered that was great. The great way to show your emotions was by playing somebody else and letting it all hang out and using somebody else's brilliant words, and just a way of me expressing myself as well within the character. But it kind of still stayed with me, as I say. And very early on into my career, I got this part playing with Peter Ustinov in a play he'd written. It's a terrible play, really. It was called Beethoven's 10th, and Peter was Beethoven coming back from the dead to solve an argument between me and Robin Bailey, who played my dad. He was a music critic and I was a young genius composer. So Beethoven turns up as a ghost and he settles this argument and talks to us, pair of us. Anyway, we get to first day of rehearsal, and of course, I'm going to meet Peter Ustinov. And Peter Ustinov, for those who don't know, is probably the world's greatest raconteur who ever lived. Peter Ustinov used words in a way that I could only dream of using words. Peter Ustinov had a story for everything. A fascinating, highly intelligent man. And I just made me feel worse and worse. So on day one, I'm thinking, oh my God, I've got to meet Peter. So what do I say? What do I say? What do I say? And I remember the whole cast going down the road from the rehearsal room, it's about 200 yards, to a pub for lunch. And I'm thinking, put me at the far end of the table so that I don't have to speak to Peter and I don't know what I'll say. But and basically had our lunch, and I thought, I'm going to take a quick flyer back to the rehearsal room so that I don't get stuck with Peter walking back the whole 200 yards. So I go and I saunter off thinking I've got ahead of them all. And I go into the sweet shop halfway down, the newsagents, and I bought some mints and some Trebor mints. And as I'm just about to turn from the counter to the door, who walks in but Peter Ustinov? Okay, so I'm thinking, oh no, I'm now trapped. I'm totally trapped, and I can't scoot off because he's my colleague, and I have to stay here and walk back with him. And he got what he was getting, and we started to walk back, and this 100 yards that was left became 5.5 miles in length, because it's like every step is like, I've got to say something, I've got to say something, I've got to say something. And it went on and on and on in this terrible, terrible silence. And we got to the steps of the rehearsal room outside, and I was just like wanting to die. And all I remember doing was just turning around to him and going, do you want a mint? He just laughed his head off at me. He knew I was struggling. The bugger knew I was struggling and just chuckled at me, went, no. And all I could think of, do you want a mint? And this man was just so glorious. He turned out to be so kind and so wonderful and so funny. He never got rehearsals done because he would stop every 2 minutes to tell us a story about the most famous person in the world that you've ever heard of. And it was anecdote city. And then you'd be in the middle of rehearsals because you get weird people like just walking in and you're in the middle of a scene. And like David Frost had spotted him outside the window. He was doing something else in another part of the building. And coming and, Peter, how are you? And I'm in the middle of mid-speech. And there's David Frost with Peter Ustinov. It was like, this is surreal. This is just
God.
But he was a very kind man. And I got to be able to talk to him. You'll be glad to know that as time went by. And not as a great friend or anything like that, but just as a great colleague, and he was very kind, and he wrote me a little. He'd written a book. He sent me a little book with his name written on, a nice, lovely message to me and things like that. So what a chap! But there was me, tongue-tied, and do you want a mint, Peter?
Fantastic. That is just brilliant.
Mate.
So when did he turn? Did he give you a funny look when you asked him?
He just chuckled, as Peter can, in this lovely way, as if to say, "Oh, darling young man, bless you. Yeah, is that all you got? Is that all you can give me? Do you want a mint?"
Oh dear, that's
he was a good chap. I mean, but it was a terrible play, to be fair. We went into the West End with it, but I don't know. It only survived because of Peter's name,
Yeah.
You win some, you lose some. But I met Peter Houston, so I guess that's a win. That goes down as a win.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But was it you did? I mean, some of the theatre work you actually did. I mean, you did the Edinburgh Festival, didn't you?
Oh, very, very early on, first year or so.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, I played Sylvius in As You Like It. It was in the official festival, that was.
Mm-hmm.
As you'll know very well, there's the massive Fringe, and that's extraordinary. Mm-hmm. First of all, the Fringe came off, I think, the official festival, didn't it? Mm-hmm. That's always been there. And then the Fringe is now the most famous thing ever about that time in August.
Yeah.
So I just did that. That's all it was. In fact, when I was there, the only time I've ever been to see Hibs was because, and I didn't go to Yorgra, I didn't go to Easter Road. Mm-hmm. I went down to Hearts. Where do Hearts play here? You'll be glad I've said
Tynecastle.
Tynecastle. Because one of my mates who was in the play, lovely man, aren't they all? I keep saying lovely, but it's true. You meet so many nice people. David Rintoul is a wonderful Scottish actor. Still is. I presume I haven't seen David for a long, long time. But and his brother Dougie Rintoul was around. I think Dougie became a director, and they took me down to Tynecastle to see them play Hibs. They were Hearts was. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was just a slightly dull 1-1 draw. But this was something like 80, 81, something like that. That long ago, before you were born, Bob.
No, I was about 7 or 8 at the time.
Oh, well, not far off. So that's all I remember. But I have been to a Scottish football match. Yeah,
that's good. Yeah, it's like being a Hibs fan, it can part and parcel. You can be up here 1 minute and get then down here the next minute. It's
you
like
are talking to a Huddersfield Town fan.
Yeah,
we kind of invented that.
Well, there you go. It was a couple of weeks ago. We went and played Rangers, and we hammered them 3-1 in the cup.
Is that the semi?
Semi, yeah. That's Hibs in the final.
Yeah, no, I was going to say that was the semi-final, wasn't it? That was extraordinary.
Yeah, and it was like Martin Boyle. He scored the hat trick, which was Hibs were actually winning 3-0, and then Rangers made it 3-1. But it was and then to win that cup semi-final, everyone's in a high. Then they play the bottom club, Ross County, on the Wednesday, and they get beat. And I'm like, oh,
that's us. That's us. We beat West Brom last week, and then we got to go and draw at Barnsley. Who were bottom of the league or second bottom. So I don't know. It's football. We love it.
Totally. I couldn't believe it. That's just, but our teams must just like to torture their fans at times. That's what they do.
I think it's the cry of most football fans. Isn't it? There's only the big clubs who ever get generally successful all the time. The rest of us all just muddle along, don't we? And then we're up, we're down, we win, we lose. And my dad always used to say, win, lose, or draw, I always enjoy my tea. And I think that's the best way to look at it, really. He used to come home and think, I'm still having my tea on a Saturday afternoon.
You know what? That's just the perfect way to look at it, by the way. Perfect way to
Absolutely.
Look at it. Absolutely. Yeah. But I mean, obviously, still talking theatre. You played Richard III. How was that?
I did play Richard III, yes. I was proud to play Richard III in
character.
Yorkshire. In Leeds, yeah. How did that come about? I'm lucky enough to be the associate artist at Leeds Playhouse. I was the central character in the very first production there in 1990. They asked me, being a Yorkshire lad living in London, and things were firing. and cooking. My career was going really well. They said, we've built this new theatre. We want a Yorkshire guy to come and play the lead. And they offered me this role of Jack Rover in Wild Oats. And in fact, I said to my dad, I remember saying to my dad, they've offered me this part. You know that new theatre they're going to build in Leeds? I said, well, they've offered me this great role, leading role. I don't know whether to do it or not. I went, get it done, son. It'd be like opening batting for Yorkshire. And he thought I was like the Jeffrey Boycott of the theatrical world. So I did that, and I did a few other productions after that, classical roles mainly. But then cut to years later. I'd not been working there for many years. I lived in London, and the artistic director of Leeds Playhouse was a lovely chap, James Bryning, who used to run Dundee, in fact. But James saw me in a play at the National Theatre called This House, all about the whip's office in the reign of Callaghan and up to the reign of Thatcher, between the Tories and the Labour whips. A great play, big success by James Graham. And he's seen me in this play at James Bryning, and he said, we want to invite you back to, it was the West Yorkshire Playhouse then, they've just rebranded it as the Leeds Playhouse, but he said, we want to invite you back to the West Yorkshire Playhouse because you're part of the walls there. You're very much part of its beginning, and we want you to come back and do some work. And so they asked me to play Alan Bennett himself in his autobiographical play Untold Stories, which I did. And then a year or so later, they said, how do you fancy Richard III? And I thought, wow. I mean, I'd never even thought of playing him, but I couldn't really resist as a Yorkshireman playing, Richard III in Yorkshire. Let's not even mention the fact that he's now buried in Leicestershire somewhere. But, there we go. It was a challenge. It was great. It was arduous and taxing and fulfilling, and all those things that you would expect from such a role. I just love the variety. But the truth is, Bobby, take away everything. Take away all my television, all my successes, or whatever they may be, on screen or whatever. But the one thing I don't want you to ever take away from me is my theatre work. Yeah, and totally. if I never work again, as I said before on screen, I'd love to go out shouting in an evening on the stage. That's where I feel really very much at home. Yeah. And I love it. I love the exploration of the character, and I love that feeling, that buzz that you get if you find your rhythm. Yeah. And you get in your stride, and it's working, and that the audience are responding, and you've got them there. It's a magnificent feeling. Doesn't always work, but if it does, wow.
You know what? It's funny that you said that, because I mean, it's been a good few years since I've did theatre myself, and I love doing theatre. But how do you feel before you actually go on in front of an audience? I mean, see, before you go on, obviously you want to think of that first line, obviously. But do you feel nervous, or do you just want to go out there?
You always do. There's nothing you can do about that. But what I am as an actor is I'm very well prepared, I have to say. I work very hard on the text beforehand. I used to leave it till the rehearsal time to learn the play. Now my failing brain, and trying to kind of understand where John was coming from, it doesn't take in the lines as easy as it used to do. So what I do, but you can only do this if you remain pliable and fluid, is that I learn the play, the part, before I go into rehearsal. Not in a way like I'm going to say it like this and I'm going to do it like that. Not that. I just learn the role. I just learn it very flat, very even, very just learn the damn lines. So that when I get into rehearsals, I've got 4 or 5 weeks of not thinking, what's the next line? What's the next line? What's the next line? That's not what the character's thinking. I've got 4.5 weeks to go, why am I saying this? What is my response to that? Why do I feel like that about that, what that character just said to me? So it's a whole different process of working and being prepared far earlier than you might be in the normal run of things. So by the time I get to opening night, or whenever it may be, the first performance, yes, there's nerves. There's no doubt about that. You can't you'd be, a Martian if you didn't have nerves. But I I've put a lot of work in up to that point. I've put a lot of background work in, and you've got to then rely. You got to try and relax enough to rely on the fact that you do know this and you know exactly what you're doing and why you're doing it. That's the main thing. So I love the theatre, and some nights you feel it slipping away, and some nights you go, I've got this, and I've got it in the palm of my hand, and I can take this and drive this and fly with this. And there's no better feeling, because you know that there's no second take, there's no this, no that. You're not going to get. They know that you're doing it live as well in front of them, and it's a fantastic thing.
Definitely. And honestly, it's someone like yourself who's been blessed to have played many fantastic characters on the stage. You know, it must be really, you must feel really good about that, you know, to play lots of really cracking.
I do, and I've been blessed with that. I mean, I you know, I've just done lots of very different things, whether it be playing Alan Bennett, from Alan Bennett to Richard III. I mean, it doesn't again get wider than that, really.
Yeah, exactly.
And I just love the process. The Alan Bennett thing was extraordinary. It was thrown at me as an idea from James Brining and Mark Rosenblatt, who was his assistant director there. And I thought, I can't do Alan Bennett. What can I do Alan Bennett? And I took it at home, the play, and I started kind of playing with it in the living room, just saying the words slightly gently out loud. And I remember walking into the kitchen to my wife, and I said, what does this sound like? And I gave her a bit, and she went, well, I'd come and see you. And I thought, yeah, go on. I think I've got this, because I knew Alan as well. Because Alan, many moons ago in 1984, I was doing a play at the Royal Court Theatre called Red Saturday, about professional football, in fact. And the casting director, it was very funny, a very poignant play about the semi-final FA Cup the night before in the hotel and in the dressing room and on the bus on the way home. But the casting director brought Alan Bennett. That's right. The casting director of the film Private Function he was about to shoot, she brought Alan Bennett along to see my performance in this play. And I got given this role of PC Penny. It was only 8 lines. PC Penny, me and Jim Cartwright from Downton Abbey fame, we were the local bungling police force, right? It was all a film about the illegal keeping of pigs after the war, to keep them for, you know, special dues and this, that, and the other. And we were the police force trying to kind of sort this crime out. But basically, they gave me this part, 8 lines, nice little role. I did a line a week up in Ilkley for weeks on end. But when I went to the first rehearsal of it, the first day, Alan Bennett walks up to me and says, he goes, you don't know who I am, but I know who you are. And I thought, bless your heart, of course I do. And he was just divine. And he used to come along every time I was filming there, and he'd be with us, and he wasn't there for any reason other than to tell us tales and keep us laughing and joke, you know, keeping our spirits up. And so when they offered me Alan Bennett in the play at Leeds Playhouse all these years later, when you play Alan, it has to go via Alan. If anybody's playing him, he has to give casting approval. And of course, he knew me from a Private Function, and he gave me the little nod. It was it's like waiting for the white smoke from the Pope to come up, you know, to tell you you've got it. But yeah, he's a lovely, lovely man.
Fantastic.
So from that to Richard III, it was, you know, it's just a joy to do things like that. I mean, Alan didn't know it, but he travelled around North Yorkshire with me for 3 months before I did the part. Just in all the tapes I took and I listened to, and everything he ever recorded. So he was kind of with me all the time, you know. But that's what I'm talking about. The preparation is
fantastic. And when you get someone like, him to kind of speak to you, and you know, he kind of like. I mean, did you not study him when you seen him, or?
Well, exactly that, and yes, I did. You know, and I say I watched recordings and I listened to recordings and all the rest of it. I mean, it wasn't meant to be, you know, a direct copy or a mimicking him, but you couldn't help it. You know, it was just like you. And it just so happened that my tones, my Yorkshire tones, I'm from 12 miles away from Leeds, where Alan was born and bred, so I could slip into that way, the delivery of the lines so very, very easily. Then just to get his voice with that was just the final piece on top. But yeah, it was great fun. That's what it's all about, you know, the work that you put in.
Right, I was going to ask you something else. It's like a book before you're directing. Right, I tell you what. Right, one of my favourite things ever on the TV is Life on Mars. What was it like working with Glennis?
You enjoyed that show, do you?
Oh, I love that show. What was it
Yeah,
like working with
yeah.
Glennis Dunson?
Well, remember Phil and I had worked together on ID many years before. He was one of the four. We were four officers who went undercover. He was one of the four, and I'd known Phil from that point. But I'd also known him before because my wife used to be at drama school with Phil at Central. So when I met my wife to be Zara, she introduced me to this guy called Phil, who was nobody at that time, and we struck up a friendship. And we used to swung a club for 30 years, but we played golf together. So then we got ID together, and then of course many years later, I was asked if I played the kind of central guest part in one of those episodes, and it was just seeing Phil like an old mate again. So that was a joy, and John Sim and I had struck up a little bit of we'd spoken with one another about a film role that I was interested in playing, something I'd written, and so I knew John a little bit as well. But it was, I just walked in and walked out. It was, you go in for those jobs, you probably do about 5 or 6 days shooting on it. Really, they'll probably put all your stuff kind of together over 5 or 6 days. But I felt at home because of Phil, really, and a little bit with John. Right. It's always nice when you feel comfortable. That's the thing.
You know, it's when you get told that these actors that you watch on the TV and how cool guys are, that's the cherry on the cake, Reece, because I mean they're fantastic actors.
Yeah.
But and to see, I mean, that episode I saw you in was fantastic as well. Loved it.
Yeah, bless you.
Loved it.
Yeah. Well, as I say, I mean, as a director now, I tell people, and I say you can't really act if you're not relaxed. It's not. Yeah, you can play all sorts of uptight characters, but within that, in the middle of that, you've got to find a level of relaxation before you even get on that television set, or that film set, where you can perform, where it doesn't throw you and all the rest of it. So having known Phil and John to a degree, and of course I was very experienced, so that does help. The more you do it, the more you're able to find that, really. And so they put me at ease, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Yeah.
Fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. And going on to what you mentioned, directing there, it's like, how do you enjoy directing these days? It's obviously you're directing more stuff.
Yeah, well, I love it. It happened by accident. I was playing a central role in one of the series, the Moving On series that Jim and McGovern devised and wrote many of them, and now he's kind of major script editor, an overseer, and exec producer on. But I was playing a central role in one, and out of the blue, the producer said, "You really should direct. You should direct one of these." And I took them at their word, and I said, "Go on, then I'll do it." Because I'd never really thought about it, but I just thought, what an offer! Somebody's saying to you after all these years of doing your stuff, you've got something.
Did you just throw yourself into it?
I was nervous, but because I'd played this part with the same crew and everything, and they knew, and I could walk the walk, as it were, and I was being given the same director of photography, cameraman, as the one who shot my episode. He was going to shoot my directing debut. And so I'm nervous as hell, but I drew every single frame. I drew a storyboard of the whole damn thing. There it was, my little stick men and my little visuals, and Len was so fantastic, and he just brought these pictures to life for me. Yes, of course, there's a lot more that I had to do and all the rest, but I was just amazed. And again, I prepared so very hard for it and all the rest of it. But I don't work that way anymore now. It's not, I don't storyboard the whole blooming thing, you'd be there forever. But I was so conscientious and so desperate to do well. And I was thrilled because Len said to the producers afterwards, he's the best first-time director I've worked with. And so I was like, wow, I'm made up. And I got the bug, and I've directed now 6, I think more than any other director. I've directed 6 of those, this kind of 45-minute single drama slice of life plays for television. Fantastic. And one of them won the RTS Award, the Royal Television Society Award for Best Daytime Programme. One of them won Broadcast Award, and we just got nominated for a BAFTA for one this last year. So, yeah, very, very thrilled how it's been going.
That's fantastic, mate. Absolutely fantastic. Really, I'm chuffed for you.
I do enjoy it. I just do. I just also think it's now that I've got more into my stride and I'm a bit more confident about it. I just think it's a great way of giving back something from all these years of work and things. Because whilst I joked at the first early part of this interview about having been around the block 15 times, if you have been around the block 15 times, you do pick up something or other.
Yeah.
And what I pride myself in is how I work with actors, because I think actors love being spoken to in a certain way that would encourage them and would fill them with confidence, and just throwing in little ideas and thoughts quietly to them as they go, and just something to play with. It's just something it's like I just speak to them as I would want to be spoken to as an actor. And I get great results from them. So I'm thrilled that this is happening now to me. And it's nice to be able to, link the two. So basically I've got twice as much chance of being employed now. Just being an actor.
But the thing is, it's like what you just said there. I mean, it must feel rewarding as well for you.
It is. It is very much. And especially when I can see in certain, not every actor you can work with gives you that thrill, because it's just not the way it works. But especially if you're in a single drama, you've cast them all. They're your actors, as it were. They're your babies. And if you speak, I mean, I always make a point of calling up each and every actor when I'm doing a single drama like that, and I talk to them beforehand, whatever part, whatever role, whatever side. I talk to them and tell them exactly what they're going to be in. What the kind of flavor will be, and how they'll look after them, and come and feel that you're in good arms, and somebody's going to be there for you. Because I think that's the only way I can get people to bring their A game. They'll do anything for you with people if you treat them with respect, and I love it. I love that I can do what I want somebody to do for me as an actor. I don't know. It gives me a lot of joy. Don't ask me to choose which I prefer, because I love doing both jobs. but they do feed one another. That's the main thing.
So who would you say was the best director you've ever worked with?
Oh my God, that's really tough. Oh my God, I wish I'd known that question was coming. Oh my God.
That for you.
It'd be so unfair to pick anybody out.
Yeah.
I did a film. The man I revered for so long was a guy called Roy Battersby, who was a real left-wing WRP chap from the 1960s and 70s. He shot a film. He cast me in the main role, a film on 4 called Winter Flight, about a young guy in the RAF. It was in the early days of Channel 4. He was a gentle giant, a wonderful, wonderful man who directs as exactly as I would want to feel that I direct now, with great care and love and attention to detail. And he inspired me, and I kept in contact for many years. He went off to live in Italy in the end with his wife Judy Lowe, the actress. And so I'll never forget Roy. What a great man. So I'm going to pick Roy with that one. I'm going to say Roy. Yeah. Well, he stayed with me for so many years. And miss the guy.
Fantastic, mate. Honestly. Well, I'll tell you what, mate, honestly. We've more or less covered just about everything.
Honestly, we've been on for a while. I've probably overrun for your podcast. Nobody will watch it for this length of time, Bobby.
Of course, listen, they'll be watching it, mate. Honestly, they will be. Definitely.
Is he waffling on again?
Honestly, it's just been fantastic. It's just been so, and every guest I've had on here, it's like the stories and stuff that it's been amazing, and your stories have been absolutely fantastic as well, mate. Honestly, wow.
Thank you.
Honestly, absolutely.
You're a star. It's nice to chat finally. Yeah, we've known each other for 4 or 5 years on our Twitter and things, and you're very generous on there, mate. And I really appreciate the support you've given me.
Absolutely,
so the least I could do to come and talk to you tonight, and I've really enjoyed myself.
Reece, honestly, it's been an absolute honour just to be chatting to you, pal. Honestly, it's just so good to chat to you. And as you said, you need something. I mean, when you see people that follow you or so forth, if you put a tweet. And especially, I love my Happy Friday thing, as you know.
Yes, you do.
And it's.
You'll be sick of me putting that cabbage up there now, won't you? I'm still going to do it.
Good. I'll never get fed up with that, mate. I'll never get fed up with that, but honestly, it's been great.
Very kind.
Because I spoke to Judy Buxton, I spoke to Jeffrey Holland,
Good
great
people.
actors.
Yeah,
really good people.
Yeah.
And yourself, which has been a
You're
bonus,
very supportive, Bobby.
Not a problem. And next time I'm down Yorkshire way, I'll give you a little shout.
Or I'm in Edinburgh.
Or in Edinburgh.
You're on.
Give me a
All
shout.
right, bud.
Give me a shout, mate.
Thank you for having me today.
Absolutely, Reece. And listen, mate, it's just been fantastic. It made my day big time. Honestly, it made my day.
Bless you. Thank you, Bobby.
Okay,
Take it
Reece.
easy.
Well
All the
done,
best.
mate. It's bye for now.